Hey there. I want you to take a second and think about something. Have you ever had a task you knew you needed to do, but you just couldn't bring yourself to start? You say to yourself, I'll do it tomorrow. But then tomorrow turns into next week, and next week turns into never. What if I told you that procrastination isn't just laziness or a lack of willpower? It's actually something much deeper. Let's break it down together from the very beginning. So, what exactly is procrastination? Let's start with the basics. Procrastination happens when you avoid doing something that you know you should do. It's like having a big test or a project to work on, but instead of getting started, you end up doing anything else, even though deep down, you know you're supposed to focus on that one thing. Now, you might think this is because you're lazy, right? Well, let's get one thing clear. Procrastination is not about laziness. It's actually an emotional regulation issue. That means when you procrastinate, something in your mind or body is reacting to the task emotionally, not just logically. And that's where things get tricky. Let's dive into the reasons we procrastinate. The first reason is fear of failure. Have you ever been so scared of not doing something perfectly that you didn't even try? Maybe you have a big project due and you think, what if I mess it up? What if it's not good enough? So instead of starting, you avoid it. This is not laziness, this is fear at work. Then there's fear of judgment. Maybe you worry about what others will think of your work. What if they criticize me? And the fear of others judging you keeps you from even getting started. Another reason is perfectionism. This is when you believe that you have to do something perfectly or not do it at all. You might spend hours trying to make everything just right, but in the end, you don't get anything done because you're stuck in the I need to be perfect trap. Finally, there's exhaustion. Sometimes we procrastinate simply because we're tired, we're mentally drained, and our nervous system has been in survival mode for too long. So the task, no matter how small, feels like too much to handle. It's not laziness, it's burnout. Now, let's go even deeper. What if I told you that procrastination is often a protective response, a way our brains cope with deeper, unhealed wounds? It's not just about avoiding work. Sometimes it's about protecting ourselves from emotions that feel too painful to face. You might not even realize this, but a lot of procrastination comes from past experiences, what we call trauma. Maybe you grew up in an environment where mistakes were punished, where perfection was expected. In that case, procrastination becomes a way to avoid making mistakes because making one could feel like a huge risk. Maybe no one ever showed you how to plan or structure your time, so planning and deadlines feel scary and unfamiliar to you. It's like trying to follow a map when you've never learned how to read one. And for some of us, procrastination comes from carrying the silent weight of survival. Maybe you grew up in a tough situation where just getting through the day took all the energy you had. So, when you try to take on new tasks, your body just doesn't feel safe enough to do so. Let's talk science for a moment. Procrastination affects your brain in ways you might not expect. Neuroscience tells us that procrastination actually lights up the same regions in your brain that are involved in pain. So, when you're avoiding a task, your brain is reacting like it's physically hurt. In fact, it's showing you the same reactions you would have if you were physically in pain. What do we usually do when something hurts? We avoid it. We distract ourselves. We scroll through social media or watch YouTube to numb the feeling. But what we don't realize is that by avoiding the task, we're only creating more stress. The task doesn't go away. And in the end, we feel worse because we're still stuck. Let's imagine procrastination like a knotted shoelace. When you see a knot in your shoe, you could try pulling on the lace harder to untangle it. But what happens? The knot just gets tighter, right? This is what happens when we try to force our way through procrastination. We try to push through, but all we're doing is making the problem worse. What you really need to do is be gentle with yourself. Take a step back. Identify the knot. Is it fear? Is it overwhelm? Is it perfectionism? Once you identify it, you can slowly, carefully begin to loosen the knot rather than force it. The day everything changed for me was the day I stopped asking, why can't I just do this? And I started asking myself, what am I really afraid of? I met my inner child who was terrified of being judged. I met my teenage self who gave up after being called a failure. And I met my adult self who believed that perfection was the only way to stay safe. But instead of pushing these parts of me away, I said, you're allowed to be here. Let's take this step together. Healing procrastination isn't about forcing productivity. It's about learning to create safety within yourself. It's about learning self-compassion and trust. You don't have to fix everything at once. Start with just one deep breath, one small task, one promise to yourself kept. And it doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is gentleness. The goal is kindness. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are healing. And healing takes time. Every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. You don't have to do everything today, but you do have to believe in yourself. You are worth showing up for. Remember, progress isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. If this video helped you today, take one small, kind step towards your task. Not for anyone else, but for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.